Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another exciting Propagandacast from your host, Imperial Dane. A 1 versus 1 awaits you on Semoisky. The new 1 versus 1 map added to Company of 2 based on the good old Semois from Company of Heroes, with some changes largely in terms of structure, but also some parts and layout, in particular how resources are placed. We shall be watching X1 Alpha 2 fighting for the Germans for the 2nd Panzer Division, going up against Alt of the Soviet Union of the Guards, Rifle Division number 210. We are seeing some pioneers moving up there. One start. Also, of course, note, there's fuels where usually placed, it's a bit further away in some sense, although it also rather changes direction. You would actually sort of move forward in to quickly get to it, where previously it was more to the side. It's now actually right off, because you then want the connecting point here, and then you want to move straight onto the fuel point either here or there. So there are some slight differences. There are buildings nearby covering, although this one is a bit more easily protected in terms of nearby structurage. Grenadier squad out first, in fact noting here that's being sent left. MD42 following up. And also noting here that Alt is in fact rushing for the victory point, and then the munitions so far actually not going after the fuel. That's quite interesting approach. As for doctrines, we're seeing Lightning War, Spearhead and Fortified Armor. And over to his other, we are seeing Guard Motor Coordination, Guard Rifle, and Shocks are pretty much the box standard commanders. Also noting here the move he made here. First he popped into the building to check if there was anyone nearby, then he made the run for the field. So nice little tactic there, ensuring there is nothing waiting in the shadows, or at least on the other side of the building. Also noting there's actually been a structure placed up here as well. Basically there's a few more buildings now. For example here, where there usually used to be a small tower, there's now in fact several sheds and other structures. Small engagement here between Grenadiers and Combat Engineers. Looks like the major engagement will be up here in the west. A little in the centre, conscripts appearing, and we also know here that, well, this is a rather common move from Company here, so this bot is being wired off. 2 Grenadier squads up. And there we go, conscripts versus MG42 with Grenadiers in support. Will he be able to deal with the conscripts first? Conscripts are definitely suffering, and there we go, finally suppressed. Too much fire being directed against them, and there we go, on the run. Combat Engineers nearby are going to have to pull back as well in the face of the advance of the Reich. And we are seeing Alt conscripts going in pretty hard. They might go straight for this cutoff point, which is currently unguarded. That would definitely be a bit of an unfortunate incident for X1 Alpha. But X1 Alpha so far making good progress on the west, having pushed away Alt. Although of course Alt is playing around, of course then engaging not the strong point, but trying to engage others' positions. Second MG42 arriving at this point for X1 Alpha. Conscripts might want to take up position in this house and fight out on the Grenadiers, and there we go. So going to pin down those Grenadiers a bit, though not in the more direct sense, but more in the sense that they can't really move about, or at least have to pull back. So there we go. Fuel on the right cut off, although the west point is actually in the hands of the Germans. And we are now noting that he's in fact going for the cut-off point of Alt, with the MG42 providing covering fire from the nearby house. So all good there. And good move there from Alt, going after the fuel there instead. Taking up here for X1 Alpha. Conscripts doing what they can. Looks like we're seeing 4 squads of conscripts. And there we go, quick hoorah. Might try to flank the MG42 there, and that might in fact work. Yes, there we go, Molotovs up. Catching a few there, but ultimately the MG42 crew does manage to make it into the house. The Molotovs have been blocked, but there we go, another Molotov on the nearby Grenadier squad. Also, no munitions are sufficient for a light machine gun if he so desires it. Grenadiers getting pushed back, running around the house. Good move, although he needs to keep up moving, and of course the Grenadiers are doing what they can. Sticking to the ditches will provide some light cover, but of course getting out into the road is going to make yourself for an easier target. And there we go, another Molotov, this time around the MG42 in the building. Grenadier squad retreating, and looks like, there we go, all retreating in the face of this, trying to avoid a squad loss. Brutal fighting right here around the house. Heavy losses for the Soviets, although some were inflicted on the Germans, but will there be a sufficient force to push back within time?
Pioneers ready for anything! Our forces increase. The enemy is taking our territory.
Like to mechanized company up, mortar on the way. Granatenwerfer.
Our lines of supply are disrupted.
And the MG42 taking up position in the church, and another one in the nearby house. Trying to create a bit of a kill zone there, although at the same time the MG42s will have a bit of trouble actually providing covering fire for each other. And for that matter, keeping them safe if things attack from enough angles. So this is actually a bit of a curious move from X1 Alpha, not really what I would consider a good one. And there you go, this MG42 is in definite trouble as the conscripts are running around constantly lobbing in Molotovs. So again, we are seeing the floor here. Although we do now see the Germans are arriving, but will they be there in time? Another Molotov to try and clear out the MG42 crew. No idea why X1 Alpha is not vacating the premises and trying to save his MG42 team. Rouse, and there we go. MG42 crew lost. Half took on the way, scout car quickly following up, and there we go, conscripts making it into the house. And a nice drive grenade, but ultimately doesn't do much. But really that was an awkward move right there from X1 Alpha. Poor handling of the MG42. But keeping up the pressure at the very least. And looks like there's a small bug here with some of the camouflage, since winter camouflage is applied, although I mean technically that could actually happen in the real war, that sometimes they didn't have time enough to actually change the camouflage from summer to winter or autumn or spring, whatever camouflage was needed. And certainly there were cases on the Eastern Front where units that had either been prepared for North Africa or arrived from North Africa were actually still in desert camouflage when they came there. Some small fun facts then. Guards drive combined arms is up for alt. Hit the dirt has been applied. Half track rolling up, and Flammenwerfer on the way, so that's going to be a Flammenpanzerwagen. Scout car out second. Anti-tank grenade and hit the dirt. Oh dear, that scout car's in trouble as the rear is exposed. And going to get caught right there. Oh dear, X1 Alpha not really handling it well. Scout car blown up, tragically so. Not sure why it almost seemed like he insisted on using it like a tank. Grenadiers providing support for the Flammenpanzerwagen, which is finally done upgrading. And the conscripts are going to get toasted. And the mortar half track there is in dire straits. Looks like we're seeing additional Grenadier squads on the way. Quite a few, in fact. He's going up to 4. That seems rather brash all of a sudden. Might have figured at least one squad of Panzer Grenadiers or something, but apparently not. Pioneers moving ahead. Guards infantry leading up the flank, which could try and cut off the flame for a half-track's path of retreat. And the Pioneers, of course, indicating that where it's going to be, since, of course, they're trying to move in to repair it. So in that sense, X1 Alpha is rather telegraphing things to alt. Grenadiers here could stand to do a bit of moving. Quick rifle grenade blowing up the fence, but not really achieving much. Half-track is being repaired, but simply the anti-tank rifles are doing too much damage. It's going to be too late. And the units need to escape. They're burning up from the flaming wreckage. It would seem anyways. Come on, X1 Alpha, retreat.
Yes? Experience is the best teacher.
There we go, retreating. Rather feels like X1 Alpha is trying to overextend towards a broader front line that is farther away from his base, rather than going for the one which is closer, which is this area, which is also the closer fuel point. So in that sense, it's a bit awkward the way he's constantly pushing for the farthest away possible point on the map. Well, it's one of the most farthest away, instead of going for the ones that are closer to his base and thus more defensible. Although it looks like the MG42 inside the church were able to end the lives of a few conscripts, leaving them dead in the ditch. And a scout car arrives, also in winter camouflage. Suppose one of the more fun little bugs one can find in the game. All pursuing pretty aggressively this time, though the MG42 though makes it out there alive in time. And taking up, going on. And a nice Panzerfaust there. Guards, infantry, conscripts moving up. Rather single file, which is not really a good thing when you're moving up a road with negative cover. Also note this church actually has a back door, or at least a second door you can move in from. Whereas the old one actually you only could move in from the front here. So that actually makes a difference in terms of the central building. Mortar nearby to provide fire support. That is good, that is good. But he really needs to fortify and support this position with some more infantry or some more support weapons. There we go, Veterans 1. Guards infantry moving up to flank from inside the cemetery. Nicely done there. Light machine guns pouring in bullets. And mortar rounds falling down. Oh, landing on the wrong side, and somehow that saves the entire guard squad. A small miracle right there. In particular, as the next mortar round might have done some more damage. MG42 team forced to pull back. Not enough force nearby support. We are seeing the support armor caught up, and it's time to put over to alt. Whose scout car now with a repaired engine pushes forwards again. Grenadiers need to retreat with Zug. Panzerfaust finishes the job. Submachine guns going up. And there we go. The 2nd Panzer Division vacates the field. Small Grenadier squad here far away from the rest. But at least he's managed to secure this part of the map. Although that should have been his initial focus, I feel.
Objective secure. We will defend. Anti-tank rifle ready.
And that's definitely going to be a lot of reinforcement needed.
Enemy infantry.
Trying to protect the cut-off point, which is in fact is threatening to strangle him with most of his resources. The Grenadiers are not having much luck versus these Guards infantrymen with the light machine guns and their grenades. Although we do see a light machine gun coming down there. Oh, quick to pick up there. Nice job, Fedorov. Looks like the Grenadiers might win out nonetheless as more reinforcements arrive. And another attempt of hit the dirt. And a nice rifle grenade just turning it into mush. Sniper quickly following up, and some additional combat engineers for alt. Of all the things.
We have a new unit.
Scout car rushes ahead.
Engineers have secured the sector.
The enemy is encroaching on our territory.
Nice bit of American engineering.
Contact with the enemy infantry.
The light scout car. Although the Americans actually did have a light half-track as well. Not just the M5, but also a much smaller half-track, which basically I suppose served the purpose equal to the German light infantry half-track, although this one also sort of did. So, little fun fact there. MG42 once more forced to vacate the premises. Not really good MG42 positioning here from X1 Alpha. And it's Grenadiers really could do with a light machine gun or something. Now mind that the German infantry squad was centered around the machine gun and not the heavy one, but the light bipod one. Be it MG34 or 42. But nice aggression here using his pioneers and some Grenadiers to push up the west flank. And there we go. Ostwind flak panzer out.
We are ready.
Supply sector under attack.
Keeping up some good overall pressure with all the infantry's actually managed. Although, I mean, noting here with alt, he's also got plenty of infantry. In fact, this is a pretty solid infantry fight in some regards. The difference being that overall, currently, alt can actually muster more firepower with his infantry due to larger numbers, but also a larger number of automatic weapons, either in the form of submachine guns or light machine guns. Whereas X1 Alpha has absolutely no light machine guns at all. Flak Pants moving out, and this Scout half-tank is in a bit of trouble. Guards are going to do what they can with the anti-tank rifles, but the success will likely be a bit limited. And this will need to retreat. Oh, looking bad, but there we go. Oh, bloody hell, Grenadiers almost wiped out. Guards in for that, and there we go, the Grenadiers were actually cleared out on the retreat. A bit unfortunate. Austrian doing what they can. Dangerous situation. Austrian on the loose, though it should be careful to stay close to some kind of unit which can actually provide support and repairs. But we are noting that Alt has been pushed back a bit back, although in return he's actually conducting some damage there on X1 Alpha, and another Grenadier squad close to getting wiped out. And another one arriving. Looks like X1 Alpha is quite fond of his Grenadier, although I wish he was also fond of upgrading them.
Squad standing by.
There we go. Conscripts with the PPSH-41. With its drum magazine, though, which was actually phased out due to the fact, well, it was a bit close in some sense. My pardons. Another problem was basically if you actually reloaded it fully, the magazine, that is, it would actually slowly break due to the spring that was inside. It couldn't actually handle the weight. And later on, it was basically, changed over to a stick magazine. But overall, a mass-produced submachine gun, used in large quantities by the Soviets, who did have a tendency of actually equipping large formations fully with submachine guns. Fun fact. And I believe they were rather unique in that sense. Flak Pans are going to repairs. Pioneers swiftly moving up. Grenadiers, mortars. Veterans 2 on that mortar. Good Arbeit. Interesting though that he's not upgraded most of his conscript squads with light submachine guns, but then again he doesn't have a lot of munitions. In fact, he's not been able to hold many of the munition squads for long. And he doesn't have any caches up to, for example, help rectify that. But still, rather potent force, also noting several of the conscript squads are veterans too, which does make them some considerably mean bastards.
In the ranks. We are ready.
Ooh, Grenadiers rushing into the house, but right straight in front of the Guards infantry. MG42 rushing into the church again. Grenadiers are getting caught on the middle of the road. Thankfully, they are not equipped with submachine guns, otherwise it might have been slightly more unpleasant for the Grenadiers. Tactical movement, which means he's gone for lightning war. Fun little ability. Good to see it used. Allows his troops to sprint everywhere. Still in a bit of trouble though, the Grenadiers need to retreat. Ostend Flak Pants are swiftly moving out. That is good. We're also noting here that a mechanized armor company is up for Alt, and we are noting an SU-85 arriving. Grenadiers here look to be in trouble, although the Ostend Flak Pants of course could change things about with its arrival. And there we go, changing things about. Mortar rounds flying in from above. Grenadiers here, I mean, X1 Alpha is really pushing it with his Grenadiers. In that sense, he needs to be a bit careful. And Veterans 2 for the Guards infantry. That's definitely going to make them a rather unpleasant experience for the Germans to deal with.
Okay, that's the last one. The enemy has taken our supply sector.
And there we go, the SU-85 in appropriately camouflage, moving ahead. Ostend Flak Panzer are going to be the first target. That's definitely bad news. And I doubt the Flak Panzer can make it out of there. There we go, destroyed engine. A bit of a sad fate.
Our points have fallen to 300.
And time for the mid-game analysis while popping over to X1 Alpha, who has in fact gone for Lightning Roll. Of course, nothing else that really provides him with tactical movement, a fun little ability. But current situation is that he's taking a lot of losses. He's just lost his Flak Panzer, and he's also got quite a bit of infantry. He's got 5 squads of Grenadiers, which is great. What he doesn't have them is upgraded, which is less than great, in particular since he does have the opportunity for Jaeger light infantry upgrades for otherwise, you know, the light machine gun. He's also gone for a doctrine which is rather heavy on munitions, and perhaps instead of a 5th squad of Grenadiers, he might have wanted to consider getting a munitions cache up, that way working towards getting some of those. I mean, with all that infantry, I mean, something that could really work nicely with it would be relief infantry, that way, you know, overall allowing to slowly but steadily increase pressure through numbers. So that likely would have been a fun idea here for X1 Alpha. Otherwise, you know, just upgrading the Grenadiers so they are more of a threat to the Soviet infantry, because currently the Soviet infantry will be gaining the upper hand. Also seeing a Panzer IV, which I mean in terms of the city here, or village, will be a bit of problematic, since of course it won't have much room for maneuvering, which will be to the advantage of the Su-85. I would certainly perhaps consider getting out some Stooks, or perhaps even, you know, skipping this and going straight on for either this, or perhaps just waiting for a Tiger tank. Because I don't think a Panzer IV is going to insist on moving up here is going to work out very well. It won't have much room to actually dodge fire from the tank destroyer. So that is something I would keep in mind if I were the German player, although of course I'd also work something towards relief infantry. Again, it's a woefully underused ability, but if used properly it can actually give a German player a good amount of strength if you then also know how to use the Osttruppen. I mean, X1 Alpha is holding most of the map, but he is taking some losses, and on the other hand, Alt isn't quite as much, and he's also got some nicely veteran infantry. He's got some nice upgrades, and now he's got an Su-85 out in the field, which is actually going to spell trouble for his opponent. So something needs to be looked into in that regard, although again he's lacking in territory. Of course, what little he has he might want to defend with a few mines, and this certainly would be a good spot to mine. And this for that matter, or this. Overall, lots of spots to mine. But Alt needs to get back into the field. He might also want to consider actually getting an Su-76 to provide some light artillery support, and in that sense, that's really the one problem that Alt is lacking, is that he's not really got any combined arms going on. He's lacking some support weapons for all of his infantry. And in that sense, I think that's something he needs to take care of to really, you know, get off the good fight. Otherwise, he needs to secure this part of the map first, then slowly push into the town, or perhaps try to sneak up a small force here. And again, I think actually do that and harass, thus forcing X1 Alpha to actually have to detach troops to clear out this area. And of course, again, in that sense, you know, relief infantry can also be useful, since again you can use the Osttruppen to cover your flanks, since again they're quite decent defensive infantry. Place them in cover in a structure, and they actually gain a small bonus, making them overall a bit more useful. But let us return to the fight. Let us see what happens. MG42 needs to get out of there. The church is about to collapse, Heinz. Nein! Say God Friedrich und Rupert. And save the atheists.
Enemy forces are securing our territory.
MG42 barely makes out there, only one man alive. Grenadiers moving up. 120 munitions. Relief infantry. Squad lost. Tragically so. Panzerkampfwagen 4 moving up. No upgrades for that either. Instead, Panzerfaust here on the Su-85. Snipers doing what they can up here with some combat engineers. And Panzer IV on the field. Needs to be careful. Needs to be very careful.
Attempting to steal our sector. We're a target! You guys, listen to me if you want to live. Enemy unit destroyed. New anti-tank gun has arrived.
And the Su-85 is actually moving ahead. You're going to use its terrain advantage. And there we go. Panzer IV is going to have to pull back in the face of this. Pack arriving as well. Panzerabwehrkanone. Primary anti-tank gun of the German army by 1944.
Enemy forces are securing our territory.
And Grenadiers in trouble here with the snipers and some conscripts.
Our new equipment has arrived.
And there we go, the veterans 2 Guards Infantry. Nice hit there from the Panzerkampfwagen, getting a few conscripts outside of the house. And some Gewehr 43s being equipped.
The sector has been cut off.
Conscripts moving up, mortar rounds going in. Very close. MD42 needs to be careful. And then we've got another Gewehr 43 upgrade. And, oh, nice bit of mortaring there. And there we go. MD42 wipes it out. A huge loss right there for Alt. And the 10th Guards Rifle Division.
The enemy is attempting to steal our sector. Water team is being assaulted.
Of course, the Soviets did also have cavalry corps. In fact, the Soviets are actually quite large users of cavalry, since they did have some mobility in certain conditions. And to a certain extent, the Germans themselves also utilized cavalry, although not quite as much as the Soviets did. They had a few SS cavalry divisions and otherwise a few Osttruppen units, which were basically Cossacks. More set up to support here. Grenadiers need to be careful. I think X1 Alpha is being a bit reckless when he's trying to panzerfaust the H-85 like that. And in fact, he might lose the Grenadier squad and the Gewehr 43. Oh! And of course, Gewehr 43 Grenadier is actually quite effective in catching snipers. I mean, combine that with tactical movement and you might actually be able to wipe out a sniper rather quickly if you know what you're doing. Mortars spotted. MD42 continue to hold up here. Veteran T2. More pioneers out, and there go. Tactical movement again. Lovely. But the Panzerkampfwagen got spotted by the H-85. The H-85 cooks it up. And the mortar crew going to get lost as well. Tragically so. Tragically so. But infantry rushing ahead. Even this Grenadier squad, which has not been fully reinforced. Looks like X1 Alpha is getting a bit desperate. And is in fact now bleeding out infantry squads. Another pair of Gewehr 43s. Oh, the Guards Infantry is going to be in serious trouble. Veterans of Free Grenadiers with Gewehr 43s are an absolute nightmare for the Soviets. And meanwhile, the squad hitting the dirt. Of course, if he was to use incendiary armor beams around, he might actually have a good chance of clearing out the conscript squad right there. And again, going after the H-85. Or at least its attendant engineers and the Grenadiers, of course, making incredibly short work of it. And a nice blocking position here from the conscripts and their submachine guns. Going to make it difficult for the Germans to advance, causing quite a few casualties. And there we go, Pioneer Squad has actually been wiped out.
Infantry rested and ready to advance rapidly.
Things are definitely getting a bit tense here, but rather getting the feeling that Alt is in the lead overall. Veteran 2-3 conscripts. Another Panzer IV on the way. I can't help but feel that X1 Alpha might be missing something. Oh yeah, this MG42 just needs to get out of there. And the Grenadier squad in trouble. Doing what they can here against the conscripts. They seem to be having a lot of luck in the process. And the second Panzerkampfwagen here for the 2nd Panzer Division. Oh dear, and that was the end of that mortar crew. And the Grenadiers might in fact also be lost. In fact, barely any units left at all for X1 Alpha. He took too many chances and his strategy was perhaps a bit too flawed. And thus he has been left with nothing. And overall, I would say, I mean, he's not really done that much with his doctrine. He's used this and he's used this. No relief infantry, no Template of the Tiger, although of course that's not really vital. And of course no fragment, no Stuka close air support, which is certainly also expensive in that sense. I mean, he's not really worked towards fully utilising his doctrine. No munitions caches. Oh dear, and these Grenadiers are just burning up already. And he's actually checking up now. I think that might be a bit too late. But looks like he's hoping to get something to help him get out of this rather sticky situation. All of his Grenadier squads have been equipped with Gewehr 43s, relying on the might of the semi-automatic rifle to lead him out of this valley of woe. And down to one man who needs to get out of there very, very quickly. Veteran T2 snipers, really bad news. Oh dear, he's actually popping both his Grenadier squads into the building. I can't help but feel this is a disaster in the making. There we go, grenade. And squad run out by the sniper. Thankfully not the Veteran T3 squad, but still this is not looking very good. Not very cheery. And the German mortar has been repurposed towards the efforts of the motherland. And a nice 152mm howitzer opening up on the German positions. Or more specifically, suspected German positions. Panzer IV in trouble again. Su-85 doing what he can, doing what he does best. Another Grenadier squad not fully reinforced. He seems a bit too hasty. Again, I get the feeling of desperation from X1 Alpha. Grenadiers need to retreat again. And there we go, these Guards Infantry have now reached Veteran T3 themselves. And certainly the one who has the most Veteran T3 Infantry is actually Alpha. And overall the unit preservation from Alpha has been considerably much better throughout the match.
Our opponents are seizing a sector.
Veterans of 3 conscripts moving ahead. Grenadiers with the Gewehr 43s actually having a bit of a hard time dealing with them. And there we go, pack recruit. And getting sniped again. Grenadiers need to retreat. Oh dear, you're doing it again, X1 Alpha. You're not quite thinking it through, I feel. And there goes, in fact, built the heavy Panzer Corps. And there we go, calling in a Panther, but might be too little too late now. Popping over to Alt, who besides the Veteran T2 Su-85 has got 4 squads of Veteran T3 Infantry, including 3 squads of Veteran T3 Conscripts, and of course the Veteran T3 Guards Infantry.
Enemy forces are capturing our supplies.
The situation is definitely not improving for the 2nd Panzer Division. Losses continue to mount up.
We are losing supplies to the enemy.
And there we go, Panzerkampfwagen 5 arriving. A bit of Panzer action.
Awaiting orders. That machine gun is far.
And there we go. How it's actually got a kill.
Ready.
Snipers might run into trouble. Oh, there we go. Using the sprint ability nicely done there by Alt. And we see tactical movement going up and return, but a bit too late. not fast enough, I fear, my friend. And there you go, Panther advancing, but there you go, Guards Infantry buttoning it. And looks to be a mine. A mine went off. Nicely done there by Alt. If you actually had mined the road, the Panther is dead meat. Finn is now caught in front of a Veteran G2 SU-85, which means increased damage and, of course, decreased damage taken. And there we go. Panther down incredibly swiftly. Basically wasted.
Now this land belongs to the Soviet people.
Just going to speed up, and there we go. Game over. A loss for the Germans for the 2nd Panzer Division. Nicely played by Alt. Good unit preservation. Good usage of his doctrine. I mean, except for the Sturmovik attack. I mean, he otherwise made full usage of it. He made good usage of Molotovs early on. Scout cars as much as possible. Kept his units alive throughout the fight, which gave him a lot of veterancy. 3 units was really, cemented things. Good usage of the SU-85. Not playing it like a tank, stealing weapons from his opponent. He could have done with more mines, I feel, though. And perhaps a single squad of penal troops wouldn't have hurt, but overall he did well. The problem was a bit more in the way that X1 Alpha tried to handle this. First, he overextended himself too far. Didn't go for the more easier to secure and hold territories, which I rather felt hurt him. In some regards. And, I mean, considering the strategy he went for, with lots of grenadiers, he didn't quite, fully support it, since it obviously meant, lightning war and a lot of munitions, but he didn't go for that. And, I mean, his failures of that rather hampered him, rather left him with a slightly, wobbly force, which wasn't really as fully supported as it could have been. His armor usage certainly was also leaving something to desired. And of course I would have loved to see some Stooks, but I'm not entirely sure if he actually would have been able to handle them. And of course the Gewehr-3s are nice, but they came too late, and he then should have again gone for some munitions caches, also gone for relief infantry. I mean, compared to Alt, he really didn't make very much use of his doctrine at all, and I do feel that hurt him. So I mean, some considerable, nasty mistakes there from X1 Alpha, which ultimately sabotaged his efforts towards victory. And of course there was this odd one with the 2 MT-42s and buildings. I really had no idea of understanding that one. That really was quite frankly silly. So there you go. Hope you enjoyed this match. Hope you learned something from it. If you did, why not subscribe to your friends? If you did, well, why not replay your own? Provide some feedback in the comments. This is Imperial Dane saying cheers.